It is such an honor to be sitting down with the legend himself, Jim Johnston. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Great.
I think that your story is so fascinating. I'm so excited to dive into this because your music was the soundtrack to my youth, and it's touched so many people. But I'm curious, as we start things off, when did music first touch your life?
Oh, early on, my grandmother was always singing. My family's from nowhere, from Pocahontas, Arkansas, and she actually got a scholarship to go to Juilliard to study opera. But that just was not in the cards. She was not leaving her husband in Pocahontas, Arkansas, to go study at Juilliard. But she played the organ and sang every single week of her life in church, and she would always sing and play piano when we'd go on vacation to visit them in the summers. My dad had an organ, a crappy Hammond organ at home that he'd mess around on, but he also, my parents listened to a lot of different kinds of music. I just always noticed music. It's not something I can say I noticed in such a tangible fashion that I was like, oh my God, I've got to find some music to listen to. It's just, I always noticed it. I would hear it in other rooms. And then there was this pivotal moment. My parents had taken my brother and sister and I to some kind of amusement park, or it was a big thing. Maybe it was a World's Fair. I don't know what the hell it was, but it was some major league event. So we're walking around amidst all the rides and booths and all these different events, and I hear music playing. Mm-hmm. And we round this corner, and I'm like dragging my entire family who's not interested in pursuing this. And I round the turn, and there, up on this stage, is this band. 4 guys, kind of very Beatles-esque, bright red sequin suit, matching suits, just playing away. And I was like, if there are music drugs, I had 48 needles hanging out of my arms at that point. Is like, I was in. That's all I needed to hear. It's like, I'm doing that. Which is interesting because it's pretty well documented. I have horrible stage fright. I can barely play my wife a new song without hemming and hawing. So I never became a performer, nor did I really want to, but just, I wanted that feeling Chris, I could have stayed there for as long as they could have played, and everyone has moments when they are truly moved by music, where it can take you from whatever mood you're in to, it's like tears are coming out of your eyes.
Yeah.
Like that, in a heartbeat. And that's what that moment did for me. So from then on, and I begged my father to buy me a guitar, and he wouldn't, and because he didn't trust that I'd stick with it, because I didn't stick with piano lessons when I was a little kid. So he rented one for a year, and I had to prove myself.
Rented the guitar for a year.
Yeah. Hey, he was Depression era guy. You don't just go down to the music store and buy guitars. You gotta earn it.
Now you can play pretty much any instrument. So I'm curious, which is your instrument that's like an extension of your own body? You can play it so easily. And which one came really difficult for you?
Well, I do all my or 95% of my composing on either guitar or piano. So it's kind of an equal shot between those. Piano's much better for like anything that's going to be orchestrated, because as you play, it's, at least for me, it's easier to imagine like, oh, this thing is, that's going to be the clarinet, you know?
Yeah.
When you do it on guitar, for some reason, a guitar is more a guitar.
Mm.
So it's going to accompany what you're singing. So for songs, the guitar is the right direction. What's hard? What's hard are all the stringed instruments. They're so hard, in fact, that I don't play them. So they are successfully really hard. I don't know, to get any sort of competence level on a violin or a cello that's got to be the thing you do. Actually, I just read I know before we started this interview, I was telling you about this new little book that Sting put on an Audible exclusive that everyone should read, because it's really just an interesting look in through the doorway of his life. I just read a short thing by Yo-Yo Ma, which was hearing his story was such an inspiration to me about. I mean, he really was a prodigy guy. He was better than anybody when he was 5 or something. But I don't know. I get such. I don't know. I get such a reward from reading stories like that and their experiences. It's and anytime I read a story from someone like that, I'm not too big into the whole world of egos. But anytime I go like, oh, I felt that, I feel like, oh God, there's hope. That guy was hungry at lunchtime one time. So we really share a lot in common.
So did you determine at a young age that music was going to be part of your life and you were going to find some sort of way to do this for a living? I
wanted to, Chris, but and this makes my father sound like he was really strict. He wasn't really a strict guy. It was just, I think, kind of the overall vibe was, and still is, if you wanted to go into music as a living, that's a long shot, man. You're really playing the long odds on that one. So, because you need a bunch of things to come together, starting with, you have to have some innate skill. And if you don't have a lot of skill, then you have to be a combination of a tremendous performer and real PR skills about how to promote yourself above the fact that you're not particularly a good musician. And some people absolutely pull that off because they kind of become a spectacle, and they surround themselves with other people who really kind of carry the load of the music. I always did art, what they call the plastic arts, meaning physical art, either painting and I was kind of headed to a life of being an architect and graphic designer, and had gone as far as having been accepted at Harvard's architectural school. And right before I was going to go, I told my dad, I can't go. I have to try this music thing.
And then where did that?
He was really disappointed.
I bet.
To hear that.
So you're accepted at Harvard, which is a feat in itself, and then you decide to not go there. So then where did the path take you? What specifically did you do in music?
Oh, it was the typical thing. I was working, supporting myself as a carpenter, and falling into the forever trap of I'll do this during the day, and then I'll work on my music at night.
Yeah.
So, but of course, by the time 6 o'clock rolls around, you just want to go out with your friends and have a beer and then fall asleep because you're so freaking tired from the day that you're done. You're not taking on a second occupation here. And something like music, it's not even a 9 to 5 job if you want to succeed. It's kind of a 16-hour a day job if you really want to accomplish something.
So obviously people know you for your time working at WWE, but
Yeah.
what were you doing before WWE hired you?
I was sort of coming up the ranks. I was doing a lot of work for HBO and MTV and Showtime, and scoring some stuff and doing all sorts of interstitial stuff, and anything I could get my hands on, basically, and just trying to work my way in. And my favorite food, which was a rarity then, at least in my neck of the woods in Connecticut, was sushi. And there was only one place in town that had it. And the sushi bar was a Japanese restaurant. And then the guy started a little sushi bar with like 4 seats. And then, became incredibly popular. And then it expanded to maybe 8 seats. But it was still such a niche item that it was like going to your local bar. You see the same people there every time you went there.
Right.
And so one night I saw this guy that I'd seen a lot of times, and he said, "Can you say you write music or something like that?" And then he explained that he worked for WWE and he was the art director for them, and he had been asked to put together a video for a NATV, which is a cable TV convention. And he said, "I could stumble through and put together a video, but I have no clue how to put music to it. If you want to give it a try." So I did. Through that, I met Vince. Vince and I inexplicably hit it off tremendously well. And this is early on when there really wasn't entrance music. No, not there really wasn't. There wasn't entrance music. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite stories is Vince's father, when Vince bought the company from his dad. And he wanted to put music in, and his father told him, "If you put music to this program, you will completely kill this business." And wow. So big miss by dad there. So Vince and I just sort of kept, developing the idea of, first it was really show themes, and then a couple of guys had a theme, and it just was a truly organic process. It was not a big plan. There was never like, okay, right now we've got 2 themes, but by 4 years from now, I want to make sure that 27% of the wrestlers have themes. It was, these 2 guys had themes because of happenstance, and then it's like, well, I guess it's working. Let's give this other guy a theme. Right. Then for a long time, it was only baby faces got themes. Heels never got themes because, you had to make sure. And that's something I sort of pushed back on. You don't push back too much on Vince on stuff, but and said, why, heels should have good music. And if a heel ever had music, it wasn't music. It was like, toilet flushes or something that clearly stated how you're supposed to feel about this guy. And so finally, that tide finally turned as well too, where, heels got good music, good themes, because they're no different than the baby faces. You just love to hate them as opposed to love them.
What was the very first entrance theme that you wrote?
I haven't got the slightest idea.
Or do you remember one of your first pieces of work?
It was a theme for, I think it was the theme for WrestleMania 1. I think
okay.
Was the first thing, was a big saxophone theme. And the first time, it was such a rush for me. The first time I heard my music played in an arena,
yeah,
and people responding to it. So that was the closest I'm going to get to what people talk about when they do concerts and they get that connection with the audience. And that that rush of that feeling. So,
But up until you started working for WWE, you're scoring TV shows and other things like that. What are your composer friends thinking when you tell them, I'm going to go work for this wrestling company called WWF?
well, I didn't have any composer friends, so that part was easy. But but the friends I did have, um, I I think the ones that were, close enough to know what I was doing and to really care what I was feeling about my life were just happy I was working, and that I was seemed to be taking the next step. And in the not the early years, for the first, I don't know, 15 years, maybe longer. I'm horrible with time. Vince and I were it was just a handshake agreement. I wasn't an employee. And it wasn't like he didn't want me to be an employee or I didn't want to be an employee. It's just, we were fine with the way things were. It wasn't until he took the company public. And when that happens, then, here we go, bring on the lawyers. And so they come in and they do all sorts of risk assessments. And they were like, oh my God, you're telling me this guy who does all your music, you don't have him under contract, you can just walk out and go work for the NFL tomorrow afternoon? That would not be a good thing. So then we had to have contracts. So I became an employee.
I imagine, as someone
and just, sorry, one other thing I would say there, and in my admiration for Vince is, I think Vince and I would have worked till my last day on the job with a handshake and been perfectly happy with it.
Wow.
Yeah, which is, you can't say a lot in this day and age.
I imagine growing up loving music and then getting into being a composer. John Williams has to be someone that you look up to.
He's a world apart. He's just a different category. Hans Zimmer is clearly a brilliant guy, incredibly prolific. I love that he's very brave and loves to take chances, and I admire his desire to collaborate with and learn from other people. But John Williams is just the way he orchestrates. It's like nobody has figured out how to do work with an orchestra the way he has and the way he does. It's just, and there's this group of people, mainly in Hollywood, who are really the top-notch people at scoring movies, and they're great. Randy Newman is one of my favorites. I love the way he writes, but more than anything, I love the way he orchestrates. And one thing for anyone who's into that kind of stuff, you should check out, because I always like to look at, what are stylistic elements of people. And Randy Newman's orchestrating is just like James Taylor's guitar playing. They always have hammer on, hammer off thing. So James Taylor is always.
I love that he has a guitar. Yes.
James Taylor is always doing. That it's a hammer on.
Yeah.
And Randy Newman is always doing that same kind of hammer on, hammer off dynamic, but with violins and orchestras. And it's always struck me as it's so similar. But I was lucky enough through a friend to be in the studio, not that he knew it, with Randy when he was both working on and literally conducting the orchestra for Robert Redford's movie, The Natural.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I mean, it was embarrassing because I'm sort of hiding in the corner. I don't know anybody there. And I spend most of the day trying not to burst into tears because it was just, because I was saying like, oh my God, they're going to shut down the session, and the session costs like $8 million a minute with this many orchestral players in the room. And they're going to go, well, oh my God, this guy is having a nervous breakdown over here in the corner. What's the problem? But it was so staggeringly beautiful what the orchestra was playing and Randy's music. And then I was in the control room just sitting around, and this guy walks in and boom, Robert Redford. It was just like as plain as day. He saw me, he walked over, he goes, "Hi, Bob Redford." I'm like, oh yeah, right. Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
In some way, your music has touched a lot of people in that same type of way.
I know, but it's so strange because it's so hard to process that, and I'm so humbled by it, but almost embarrassed by it. It's actually an interesting dynamic when someone, particularly when it happens in person, and someone is really gushing about how much you've meant to them or something you've done has meant to them.
Yeah.
And, you want to honor that and be completely respectful. But at the same time, there's this other part you want to say like, hey, I'm not that good. I'm glad you like this stuff. But because I think all composers, when you're doing what you do, you're just doing what you do. You're from that. I'm not sitting around the studio going, "Oh God, Jim, that's brilliant. Oh geez, that's really good. That's going to kill people right there." I think you're no different than the fireman he puts out fires. That's what his job is. My job is to sit here in the studio and compose music.
Well, the thing is, you might look at it that way, but from the outside looking in, when we're listening to your work, you are the greatest to ever do this in the wrestling business. Yeah,
well, and now I'm trying to break out of that business, and it's so interesting because I never was a wrestling fan, and as I said, I got in the door there, complete happenstance. It wasn't like I was sending tapes to Vince saying, "You've got to listen to my stuff, man," because I've got this great idea. We'll do entrance themes for these guys, but it just steamrolled so quickly, and Vince was obviously he wanted to take the business over from his dad for a long time, or I'm assuming that he wanted to do that for a long time. Finally did, and once he had control, he just wanted to completely change the landscape, which he did.
Yeah. Where does the process begin when Vince or someone in WWE says, "We've got this new person that's coming in, we need a theme for them"? Where does the process begin?
I never really got a whole lot of information, Chris. It was, if I could see any video, that helped tremendously, because a lot of it, where I start generally is I want to know a basic tempo, a vibe. So, in the extreme, if it's a giant guy, it's going to be a slower,
sure,
big, heavy, slow, lumbering theme, that tempo that reflects he's a big guy. He's so if you run fast, I would start doing that now. And then other guys are smaller and they're wiry, and so they're you want to reflect that wiriness and that nervousness and that energy. So you start there, and then I just try to find something that resonates. So it really is. It's as elusive as I just sit down and start playing stuff, and then suddenly, it's such an odd process. But suddenly something will go. I'll just know, like, that's it. That's it.
I mean, you hear about writers getting writer's block. Does that ever happen to you in the music world?
Never. Not a moment in my life have I had writer's block. It's and this sounds like, oh, poor you, but everything, even the best stuff, can be in extremes where it's not helping you out a lot.
Yeah.
And I have been so graced to never have writer's block. But the other side of that is I can't pick up a guitar or sit down at the piano or pick up a bass guitar without getting an idea. They just come. So I've got this backlog. I keep all these ideas on my phone, and before that it was on little, those little handheld tape,
like a Palm Pilot or something.
Reporters used to.
Oh, okay.
Like what, and when they said best, you said what, and so I just erased this the other day. And I'm already up to 73 ideas now, and I have these files and memos, and each folder I take them off the phone and archive them. Each folder must have, it'll get to about 200 or 300 when I'll finally just say I've got to get these off the phone, so that so the phone doesn't break or it doesn't get stolen and they're gone. But I've got hundreds of folders of these things that I'd love to go back and go through. And I mean, obviously, out of 70 things, I figure if I had the time, which are worth pursuing to do a full recording, I don't know, 15, I don't know what the odds are, but I don't have that kind of time. And so it also produces another thing that's not particularly valuable for me, which is distraction. I'll be working on one thing. While I'm working on that, I get a cool idea, and I want to stop what I'm working on and now go work on the new cool idea, because it's fresh and it's current, and that's exciting versus the less than exciting discipline aspects of sticking with it and finishing a composition. And my time at WWE was a blessing in that regard, because the pace was such and the schedules were so demanding that I didn't have time to get distracted.
Sure.
It's just keep shoving you forward.
What was the quickest turnaround that you ever had for a theme?
My God.
We just signed this guy. He's debuting tonight on Raw, Jim.
Oh, that happened all the time. Oh my God, that was not rare in the least. But I don't know, an hour and a half or something.
On whose theme did you write in an hour and a half?
I have no idea, but I know that there were definitely times when I'd get a call from wherever they were shooting TV, and it's like, we need something for this guy. He's whatever he would. The writers just decided they were in a tag team, but they're going to split them off. It's going to be a solo. Need a piece of music. Give me anything. And it's easy for them to say, give me anything, but I felt a great responsibility. Like, part of these guys' careers and successes were in my hands. I think the music now in WWE and in AEW, I think it's, sorry, this is mean. I think it's all really homogenous and really mediocre and doesn't have anything to do with the characters. And I think that's why there are less big stars. I don't think that there are no potential big stars in the rosters hiding there. I mean, before Steve Austin was Steve Austin, he was the ringmaster. And there are lots of stories like that, is that these people need the right storyline, the right costuming, and definitely the right music to lift them up, because particularly the music is serving multiple masters in a way. It's entertainment for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big boot in the ass for the wrestler before they go out, and to sort of get them in the headspace of their character and to kind of get them jacked up to do a great performance. And if you're in that situation, I can't imagine being in that situation where, you know, you're not really sure your character, you know, the storyline is sort of, you know, I'm supposed to hate this guy, but why do I hate? I don't even know why I'm supposed to hate him. And you know, your music is just kind of generic wrestler guy music,
Right.
and you're supposed to go out there and be on top of the world and charm everybody else. And, I think that's a big ask.
Well, your music ends up playing into who that character is, and like it can often define what their gimmick becomes. I just had Chris Masters on the show recently. I can't imagine Chris Masters without that entrance theme, which then became his entrance, which then became a part of who he was.
Well, but I always saw WWE as a live movie, you know, and I always felt that I'm scoring the characters to the movies. That their theme has to be just like the theme to Jaws or Darth Vader or any other Dr. Zhivago, you know, Air Force One. You know, you have to hear it and think like, yeah, okay, here comes Steve Austin. You don't need to know anything else.
Yeah.
You don't need to know the storyline. Don't need to know who he's wrestling tonight. You don't need to know, you know, what happened last week or what might happen in the next week. All you need to know is Steve Austin's coming out. It's like, boom, I'm good to go. I'm in.
Right.
And you're instantly in that defiant, go screw yourself frame of mind. And you take that out of the wrestling business, and I think it's an enormous component. And so the audience it's like you're putting too much responsibility on the audience to, it's like being in a movie and the movie is not very good and you're not following the movie. So you're, you know, like you're nudging your girlfriend is like, so wait a second, is this the guy who we think killed the girl, or do we think the girl killed the guy? Like, I'm kind of lost here. If that's the audience reaction, then boy, then you're fighting a losing battle. They have to be the exact opposite. They have to be like, this guy did it. He's going to get his ass kicked, and I can't wait to be there to see when it happens.
You know, you mentioned AEW, and when they started, you were no longer employed by WWE. Did they ever reach out to you to have you work there?
No, and it is always just from a business angle. It has always amazed me because if I was in the like boardroom or whatever, I'd say like, Vince just fired you. This is a way we can really stick it to him. Find that guy, get him in here this afternoon. You know.
Well, think of how many other people they brought over from WWE: Jim Ross, Justin Roberts, and of course all kinds of other, you know, in-ring performers.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's I don't know. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. But hey.
Well, I think the thing that was so great about your legendary themes throughout your career is within one or two beats, boom, we knew exactly who was coming out. And this is something that WCW never figured out, TNA never figured out. And unfortunately, AEW really doesn't have that either.
No, they don't. And the biggest surprise to me was all my time at WWE, music was really important to Vince. I mean, he clearly got the importance of it. And so something changed. So, I mean, either the business has just gotten so big, or I don't know, maybe he's a little bit older and just doesn't want to be so engaged on a micromanagement level, and it's leaving those decisions to other people. But it seems like such an obvious thing in both WWE and AEW. Well, you know, things aren't going perfectly here, and our ratings certainly are not what they once were. What can we do to give this baby a shot in the arm? You know, that someone doesn't raise their hand and say, like, everyone thinks the music sucks. Maybe we could get better music. I don't know, you know, but it's I mean, you know, you're in Hollywood. It's the whole entertainment world. There's a lot of egos floating around, and many decisions are not based on logic, but they are based on you know, love or lust or hatred or resentment, or you know, yes, he's the right guy for the job, but we're not hiring him.
Yeah.
You know, it's great. I mean, it's crazy, but hey, that's the world in which we live.
But with the amazing relationship that you had with Vince McMahon, you know, dating back to the 80s, did you ever think that you would get fired one day?
Not really, but in the last couple of years, I certainly did, because there was a guy there who was trying to get me fired, and trying to get me thrown out and get his people in the door. And so, you know, fine, that's the way the game is played, but it's not the way I played it. So
and I may be speaking completely out of turn here, but you're available for hire. You're doing all kinds of other work. If a wrestler who wasn't signed to a major company were to reach out to you, is that someone? Would you be able to make music for someone like that?
I did actually for oh my God, I don't feel it's
PCO.
Yeah, PCO. Thank you. God. That's so mean of me not to remember his name. He reached out of the blue, somehow got to me, and he was so kind and gracious and said, like, you know, I'm taking an absolute flyer here. Would you even consider writing a theme for me? And this was shortly after I'd gotten out of, well, not that shortly, you know, but I don't know, 6-9 months, year. And I said, sure. Well, you know, why not? I'm not doing that much else. You know, well, what the hell? It'd be fun. You know, it's also when you do something for so many years, human beings are very habitual. You know, and if you get in the habit of stuff, it doesn't just go away overnight.
Sure.
And so, while I get a million ideas, song ideas, orchestral ideas, still to this day, I'll be messing around on something and I'll go like, boy, that'd be a great theme idea. You know, I mean, you know, you just pick up a guitar and you're messing around and, you know, it's like, oh, okay.
You just wrote my entrance theme. Thank you.
You know, that would be a great theme. And
Yeah.
that's really how it happens most of the time. And so, yeah. I mean, I guess there are contractual problems, but it's also been a little surprising that some of the wrestlers haven't gotten in touch and who are signed to AEW or WWE and say like, hey, I don't care, write it under an alias, but I've got to get some good music. I don't know. I know, in the times before I left that there was a lot of control issues going on where I heard through the grapevine that there were a lot of wrestlers who just hated the music they were being given, but they were also not being given any latitude to do something different.
What I think is interesting is Shinsuke Nakamura's theme, became a fan favorite. The crowd was singing along, but that wasn't originally going to be his theme. It was going to be Bobby Roode. The Glorious theme was going to be given to Shinsuke Nakamura. And after speaking with you here, it seems crazy that they just had a theme. They go, this is a great theme. We just got to find the right person for it. Where you're doing the opposite. You're finding the person and then making music to fit that person.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It doesn't make much sense to sit around here and compose music and then say like, oh, this is a great piece of music. I just need to find the right film for it. No, it's like someone makes a film and then you write music to it.
Yeah.
It's backwards. And that's a great point you bring up. Is probably one of the problems for sure.
It's obviously going to be very difficult, like choosing your favorite child, but what do you think is your masterpiece?
Oh, Chris, I have no idea. When I think about it, well, I don't really think about it, but like if I'm going through old stuff, looking for something and I come across old themes and I go like, oh, that, I really like that. And I have this, well, evidently quite a few composers have this. Once you compose something and it's done, it sort of leaves you and it's out there. And so there isn't, I guess there's a pride of ownership, but there isn't at least for me, there's not a like, wow, geez, I was having a good day when I wrote that one. That's just great. It's much more like you're just hearing a piece of music on the radio that it's like, oh, that's one of my favorite songs. I love that. I love that song. And I feel that with absolutely no ownership whatsoever. It's just like, oh, it's like absolutely like someone else wrote it. But I love listening to it. So, but it changes all the time. I mean, it just changes all the time. I mean, from a what I read and what I get asked, certainly Undertaker seems to be up there, but I think that's mainly because of Undertaker. I mean, he's had, I think, arguably the most incredible career in the business, length and popularity. I mean, the guy's at least semi-retired now at this point, and he's essentially as popular as he's ever been.
Yeah.
And if Vince brought him to the show or WrestleMania or any other pay-per-view, he'd be the top card probably. He'd probably be the most popular guy on the show. I mean, maybe except for Austin or The Rock.
I think a lot of people would point to your DX theme, like that Degeneration X theme was so good. It was so good. I was like 15 or 16 when it first came out. I thought it was Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, it's a funk song. It's so strange. It sort of comes off as a rock song, but to me, it's completely a funk song.
Huh.
Like right out of I don't know. It's sort of like Rage doing their version of a Motown tune or something, because it's got this funk. It's not a rock beat. A rock version of it would be be much more straightforward, chunky. But DX, the way I wrote it, it's bouncy. It's a funk song. I mean, I'd love to do a version with like Kool and the Gang, and it'd be. I think if I did, it would make so much more sense as a song.
That'd be an incredible collaboration.
Chris Warren was just great. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Kool and the Gang being a cool collaboration, but think of all the incredible collaborations that you've done throughout your career. Which are the ones that really impressed you?
Well, I guess the ones with Motorhead were really exciting.
God rest his soul too.
Yeah, no kidding, Lemmy. And I think that was a good lesson in don't ever prejudge, because Lemmy has a pretty formidable reputation of being a pretty wild guy, and certainly a well-known drinking problem. But then to finally meet him and be in the studio with him, he just could not have been more of a gentleman, and a really interesting guy to talk with. And it's, I don't know, things are never what you think.
Yeah. I want to ask you about one of my favorite themes, which was
oh great, I love this,
Billy Gunn's Ass Man song.
Oh. I'm an ass man.
Where did you get the idea for this?
I mean, from him, because he already was the ass man. He was already wearing the bathing suit.
He was Mr. Ass.
Yeah, Mr. Ass with ass across his ass, and the thing that just kills me to this day, and I don't think most people get it, is just the incredible double entendre pun of that song. It still makes me laugh just right now.
The lyrics are incredible. I love to love them.
Like
Kick 'em.
Man, and it comes off like kind of a sexual thing, and yet his character was kind of a little bit of a buffoon in a way. And sorry, no offense to him, and I don't know if that was on purpose or just the way he played it, or but I just love that, put a comma in there. I'm an ass man. And that he's the one ostensibly singing this about himself. I'm an ass man. And thinking he's putting himself over. It's just, that kind of stuff, that was the best of WWE, when they have fun with themselves. And now everything's so serious. Everybody hates each other, and everyone's, I'm gonna get my hands on that. Austin and Rock and all the top guys and the best moments generally were fun. It was more, dry humor, sarcasm. When it gets, I don't know, it just goes to places that aren't very much fun.
Yeah. I think one of your most underrated themes of all time is The Brood, or Gangrel's theme.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that theme is so good. I'm curious to know where you got the idea to figure out that line, play it reverse for the start of the song. I am dead, I am buried.
I've totally forgotten what the actual line was.
I think that
probably was one of the producers there, a really creative guy named Chris Chambers. I worked with him on that, and I think that was his idea, and to put a line up front, and then did all the reversing and slowing it down and make it. I figured, hey, it's got to be ghostly and devilish, but I remember doing that. I couldn't that kind of wah wah guitar part. I couldn't. I had like 3 different wah wah pedals, and I just could not get the sound I was wanting. And all a wah wah pedal does is it's a tone control in a pedal, and basically the mid-range frequencies of something, and it's sweeping them. So as it sweeps, it makes a wah 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 sound. But I couldn't get enough of it, and it sounded cheesy. So I recorded the guitar straight ahead, and then I was on the. This is probably way too technical for 99.
No, I'm a guitar player myself, by the way. I probably should have led with this.
I ran it through 2 different channels of the console, like through one and then out and then into another one. So I could use 2 EQs at the same time. And I balanced the bands right to the frequency I wanted. And then I played it back and recorded live, working the console. Wow, wow. And I could turn the controls in perfect rhythm to the song. And I got a much thicker, much more extreme kind of wah sound that I think really helped.
It's such a good theme. Are we?
And those guys, and the interesting thing, Chris, is when I would luck into doing something, and the theme would turn out well, then it was a perfect deal when the wrestlers had the talent and gifts to play into that. I always looked at it like a dance. You can have a great theme, but if the guy can't dance to it, then you're kind of dead in the water. And and Gangrel and Rude really danced to that. I mean, they sold this sort of nouveau cool vampire thing that it's cool to be a vampire, and they just seemed, again, but the same deal. You had fun because it seemed like they were having fun with it.
Yes.
They came up, they rose out of the ground, they were almost always smiling.
They were.
Funny how that works.
What was the last theme that you wrote before being released by WWE?
I think, well, I wrote quite a few things, but they weren't being used because I was being sort of politically squashed. But it was End of Days.
Baron Corbin?
Baron Corbin's theme, yeah. Which was very apropos because if you look at the lyrics, I've forgotten if I said this earlier or if it was before we were talking before we went on air here. There's always something personal to the themes, and a lot of times it's very personal. And Baron Corbin's was definitely was End of Days is it's purely if you look at the lyrics, it's it sounds like an epic end of days. I'm bringing end of days on you, but it's autobiographical. And I don't realize this until I look back on it. It's like, oh my God, it's almost embarrassing. It's so personal. I'm talking about, I know the end's coming. This is
wow.
I'm bowing out. The big goodbye is right on the horizon, and it was my end of days at WWE. And if you there's a lot of stuff in there, and anger and disappointment, and but that happened a lot. Vince's theme. Vince's theme. I wrote Vince's theme, No Chance in Hell, when I was really angry with him. I just seen him at his worst bullyish self, and so it was just a literal telling what I saw. Is like, you have no chance against this guy because he'll just keep coming at you. So you're screwed.
Wow.
Because he doesn't play by the rules you play by.
Yeah.
So you have no chance.
There's a little Jim Johnston in every single theme.
There is, and it's so strange that dynamic of you write something, and then you don't realize till later that. I mean, at the time you feel like, oh, okay, so I got to crank out this theme. Okay, all right, no chance in hell. All right, no chance.
Yeah.
Oh, I got. And you look back at it later, it's like, oh my God, in heaven, that's spooky. And it happened a billion times, by the way.
How many different themes can we hear your voice on?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I have no idea. Certainly not that many, for a couple of reasons. One, I just didn't sing a whole lot. Yeah. And generally speaking, and to my great frustration, because finding good singers is the most difficult thing I ever deal with. I still deal with it now. Once you find a good singer, they're part of that gimmick.
Yeah.
You like, I couldn't use Chris Warren to sing somebody else's theme. I mean, he was sort of in that DX world forever.
Is he the same guy who sang Triple H's My Time?
Yeah, but I was about to say, you can expand it out because Triple H was in DX, and so, okay, you can stretch it that far. But that's as far as you can stretch it, because people will hear that voice and go like, oh, that's the guy who sings DX.
Yeah. And
for me, I always thought it's so crucially important. And I dealt with this when WWE started to use pieces of outside music. And people there always felt like, oh, well, it makes us bigger to use this piece of music. I believe that's true for something like a pay-per-view theme, to brand like a pay-per-view or WrestleMania, like using the Highway to Hell or AC/DC song, but not as a theme, because I think it's so important that when you hear someone's theme, you have no associations with that other than that person. Yeah. You can't have Undertaker coming out and people are thinking about the first time they made out with their girlfriend. I mean,
to a Kid Rock song.
That happened to be the song that was on the radio in the car at the time.
Yeah.
You just want hyper focus. You want people to be completely immersed in this emotional world of this character, or as close as you can get to it. And outside music, people are, whether they like it or they hate it, that's what they're going to be thinking about when they hear it.
So what sneaky song could we hear your voice on that we might not know it's your voice?
Oh, there was a SmackDown theme where that I did where it was sort of my homage and criticism of the monster voice, the Cookie Monster voice in heavy metal songs, where it's just a guy. So, and that was another thing where it was a real hurry up thing. So I had a pretty good groove going, and I needed a singer, and I realized I'm not going to have time to sign some heavy metal singer who can do that weird voice thing. And then I thought, like, well, who cares? You never found someone. You can't tell what they're singing anyway. So I sang complete gibberish. So it was so funny having people try to figure out what the lyrics were. I was just going, And
That's great.
slowed my voice down a little bit. So
Even though you're not employed by WWE, your music is still playing every single week. I imagine you still get quite a few royalty checks from WWE.
yeah, well, not from WWE, but from BMI. Those are, if you look on the back of your CD case or something, you'll see BMI or ASCAP. Those are called Performance Rights Society, and they are the organizations that collect royalties and distribute them to composers. Yeah, so that part's nice.
So do you get more based on where it's played? Like if your theme is played on Raw versus WrestleMania, if it's played for 8 minutes, like an Undertaker entrance versus 30 seconds?
Oh, timing, yes, definitely. And where, yes. Like if you have a piece of music that's played for 1 minute, if it's played on USA Network for 1 minute, you're going to make, I don't even know what per minute is. Like, let's say 1 minute, you get $100. If that played on CBS in prime time, it could be a couple of $1,000.
So when your themes play on Friday Night SmackDown on Fox, much more.
More, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And
I don't know. I've actually never, tried to, it's sort of hard to discern unless you got the exact same piece of music playing on both and you can see. But yes, there's an absolute sliding scale, and it's actually a big controversy going on right now with the performance rights societies, because so many people are getting their content through streaming. And all the composers who have lots of stuff on streaming services are saying, why are the rates so low when the vast majority of people are watching TV and movies and everything else through a streaming service?
Right.
And it has to change, because clearly, it's happening exponentially fast at this point, the changeover. I think the bigger problem, it's happening so fast, I believe the bigger problem now is, what are these terrestrial TV stations going to do? I mean, how is a CBS going to transition out of this, to, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, is regular TV as we know it going to basically fade away? I would assume it's going to basically fade away, and that new TVs will essentially just be a computer, and you'll turn on your computer, and instead of turning to channel 2, you'll be turning to cbs.com,
right,
and streaming from there.
So where can we hear some of your other work right now that's not wrestling related? Because you're doing all kinds of stuff outside of wrestling.
Well, I've got, in a somewhat related topic to that, the way the music industry works, every piece of music has two owners. It has the composer and it has the publisher. And if it's a situation like mine, where I'm the sole composer and WWE is the sole publisher. So there are two ways of looking at it. It's like that. Either I own 50% of that composition and they own 50%. But the way the music industry deals with it is really each composition is 200%. I own 100% of the composition side. They own 100% of the publishing side. The weirdness to that system is if you're the publisher, if Chris is the publisher, you have all the power. So Ford could come to us and say, like, hey, we want to use Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme for our new F-150X.
Yeah.
I could say, great idea. I love that. And you could say, no, not into it. And we're not doing it.
Wow.
It's that simple. And there are all sorts of, so along with that, I can't do anything with my own music because they're the publisher. I would have to go to them for permission to say, I'd like to send this to Ford because I want to pitch an idea.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure you guys would be on board if I can sell it. Because if they're not, I'm dead in the water. Which is very weird to not be able to do something with your own music. I can use it for a demo purpose,
Sure.
demo reel, but that's it. So when post WWE, I found myself in this situation that I have to create a reel of music because I've been busy for all these years not making my own music. And even a few songs that were my songs that I guess you would say, loaned to WWE. They're now mine, but there's another element in the music business called the master. It's that recording. So that recording, they own that recording, even though I own the composition side and the publishing side, they own that recording. So I can't use that recording. And this is what's happening now for anyone who are fans of Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She's been re-recording masters
Because
to get
Scooter
control
brought
of her music.
masters and not her.
Yeah. And there are a lot of unfairnesses in the music industry, and boy, that's a big one that needs to be sorted out. But
yeah.
So in any case, I've been in the process of creating a reel, and that takes time to promote myself, basically. So there's some stuff that I keep in sort of rotation on my website, mainly orchestral stuff, which I've really enjoyed taking the time to do. But right now I'm working on a bunch of songs, including a few I'm throwing out there, which are basically like entrance themes. Because I've had a couple of ideas where it's like I got to do that. That's too good. So.
You're also scoring films, scoring TV shows as well?
No, I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to do, and
yeah.
I'm just about to sign with someone in Hollywood, or sort of in negotiation with them. So
this is exciting.
Yeah. No, everything's great. It's a little scattered, and getting out of WWE, it's like going through a divorce. You've been doing the same thing for so long.
Yeah.
There's a considerable amount of emotion that happens, and readjusting yourself because you for so long you've just gotten up every morning and you're doing the same thing, and what's on your table, and then you get up one morning and that's no longer on the table, or that person is no longer laying next to you anymore, and that takes adjustment, or it did for me. Yeah.
I think it seems obvious that you're a Hall of Famer, but do you think that WWE will induct you into their Hall of Fame?
I think if they haven't already, they're not going to. Yeah. And it's, it's one of those kind of pesky things where you don't want to be petty about it. But it's like, you guys did fire me, and now you want me to come back and kind of put you over by doing, the Hall of Fame. So it's, would it be an honor? Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, would it be uncomfortable? It certainly would be uncomfortable, because there are a number of people there that I would be thrilled not to see again, and not to have to shake their hand and pretend that we're all friendly. But I don't know, it's not a big aspect of my life now, and I'm loving what I'm doing. And one of the really exciting things and positive things after doing the WWE thing for so long, is to be able to come to the studio and write whatever you want.
Yeah.
Of not being told like, okay, Chris needs a theme and we need.
I need a theme.
Yeah. I'll do a theme for you. You want a theme?
Oh my God. I would die a happy man after that.
I'd be thrilled to do a theme for you. What do you think? What would be a theme for you? What's your best guess?
Boy, we could be on this for the next 4 hours trying to figure this out. But I was a backyard wrestler when I was 16.
Really?
And I had a Rage Against the Machine song because I was a heel.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember what it was called, but that was my theme song. I don't know. I mean,
you think you'd be more comfortable being a babyface or a heel?
I think I'd be a babyface now. I mean, I'd like to think that I'm pretty positive and charismatic and happy. I like to smile.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
That comes off. But sometimes they make the best heels because, think about your easiest way is think about your favorite films in particular. The best bad guys are the most outstanding. Hannibal Lecter. They're not the seedy, ugly, dirty. It's sort of trite. It's like, okay, you're a bad guy. I get it. Please slap me in the face again. But it's that person or like the mystery thing where there's this charming, perfect guy. And it's like, well, he's not the serial killer. I mean, my God in heaven, this is the guy who's trying his best to save everyone and catch the serial killer.
Yeah.
So those are the best guys to find out he's the serial killer.
Yeah.
Because the good guys are only as good as the bad guys are bad. And if you're going to play Superman, you better pray that they come up with, a Joker dude or Batman,
Lex Luthor,
Joker who's like, he's really bad. I mean, he's really messed up, sick guy. And so that makes Batman better because it's challenging to win. It's meaningful to win. And this other guy is so bad and so scary. And even though it's only a movie, you can't help but think like, man, there are probably guys out there like this. And these people need to be killed, and put away because, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
So to have bad guys who are really dangerous, I mean, it'd be interesting to go I'm a bit of a contrarian where I don't like if there was a new black guy wrestler immediately, like the last thing I want to do is hip hop. It's like, oh my God, okay, yeah, he's black, so let's do hip hop, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, how about let's do anything but hip hop?
Yeah.
So you say that, and my first impression when we started talking about a theme for you would be something very mysterious, very dark, and still could be used for your show because it would come off like, what am I doing this week? Who knows?
Oh.
I mean, I could be interviewing Jim. I could be interviewing The Rock. I could be surfing. I could be climbing a mountain. I could be interviewing some beautiful woman.
I like
as
pick up the guitar and give us.
It's like you're already the whole upbeat, healthy, good-looking, handsome guy, and fit and everything. You don't need music to sell that. You sell that. You've already sold it. So now you're being redundant. Your music is saying the obvious. I think you want music to be kind of a subtext that's saying something deeper about what you believe or what's going on underneath the surface.
This is like a master class here. I love this. Jeez. But as we wrap this up, Jim, can you pick up your guitar and give me a little riff of what the Chris Van Vliet theme would sound like?
It would be a piano written thing.
It's a piano riff.
I don't. Oh, sorry. I'll never think of it. But
Whatever you just came up with is good enough for me.
I'll do. Here you go. It's something like it's this. Something like that. Something in that category.
This has been such a treat talking to you.
Oh my God, no, it's been great to spend some time with you.
I love it. And I want to be respectful of your time, but I end every interview talking about gratitude because it's such an important thing in my life. And you see it right here.
I love this.
Be great, be grateful.
Me too.
So I start and end every day saying out loud 3 things that I'm grateful for. So I end every interview the same way. I want to ask you, Jim, what are 3 things in your life that you're grateful for right now?
I'm grateful for this period of time. I've always been a pretty instinctual person, and I feel the wave coming that, there's been this huge chapter 1 in my life, WWE. And so I'm very grateful for this interim time, because chapter 2 is so imminent. I mean, like truly, potentially days imminent away. Just so many different things conspiring in a good way in my life.
Love it.
My wife, without question, she keeps me centered and sane and fed and all sorts of good things. I'm grateful for just being, as uncomfortable as I know it makes some people, I'm being dishonest if I don't say it. I've just been so blessed by God to live a great life, to just have great, good fortune, and in that whole relationship, I take that seriously, in that I have a responsibility in that relationship. I don't think he just feeds you stuff for free. I feel like I do my part. I work hard. I have a very strong work ethic and responsibility to what I do. But I feel like I got this great gift, and I feel like it's my responsibility to get it out there.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful that I've had this great opportunity to get it out there through WWE, and I'm really happy to see some things opening up here, some chapter 2 outlets. Give me your 3.
On behalf of wrestling fans all around the world, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for scoring our childhoods. Thank you for scoring our adolescent years. Thank you for all of the memories that are linked to simply you just making some incredible music.
Thank you.
Could you do us the great honor of playing us out?
Sure. What do you want to hear?
Oh my.
Undertaker?
Play the Undertaker.
Okay.